My name is Carlos Ordoñana, and I am surrounded here by very magnificent people. We are presenting today our webinar on the present and future of data-driven learning. Here I have Alessandra Cacciato. She's helping me organize, well, I'm basically helping her organize this whole thing. We're helping each other. And we're trying to provide a new perspective on how DDL can work as an area of study, right? So before we start, I would like to give an introduction on how this is actually going to work and how what is the actual rationale for our efforts in organizing this webinar. So if you have all registered for this webinar, you might be somewhat familiar, I hope, with what data-driven learning is and what it stands for. But there's a quick reminder. We understand DDL as an approach to language learning and teaching in which learners are posed as discoverers of linguistic patterns. It's mainly an inductive process in which the participants, or learners, the students, are given the freedom to interact with authentic language in order to be able to notice different, let's say, the different specificities and intricacies of how language works. Normally, this approach, at least in the beginning, it was done using concordances by exploring corpora and exploring concordances and keywords in context. At the beginning, obviously, with hands-on printed materials, but as the technology started, evolving through time and more sophisticated tools became available, this process has been updated, has evolved again, and it has changed through time to adapt to new the new possibilities that technology can offer. In this sense, where we're trying to what the method allows and what the academia basically says is that DDL, at least in theory, is very good. The consensus, more or less, is that theoretically speaking, DDL helps, that contributes to learning, being basically aligned with constructivist theories by helping start a dialogue with the authentic language that you're interacting with, and in a way trying to discover the linguistic patterns and therefore integrating better into your learning process. It's also reminiscent of usage-based learning and sociocultural theory because of those very same things, because we are trying to explore language autonomously with maybe the help of an instructor that can guide us through how to manage all that enormous amounts of data that is corporate. In practice, is basically based on inductive learning, which promotes inductive learning by helping you see many examples, many specific samples of how language is constructed, and then generalizing to more basic rules of how language works. It also supports autonomous learning and personalized learning because you can basically tailor your DDL materials to help adapt to the individual, let's say, the individual specifics of any learner. However, even if there is some consensus amongst academics about how DDL is a good thing, is working, it's useful, it's certainly struggling to garner adoption, a widespread adoption amongst both academics and practitioners. There has been, throughout the years, an emphasis on trying to normalize DDL, to get it to work for all stages of education, not just tertiary education, but to get it to work for, let's say, for instance, secondary education teachers or primary education teachers. If there is not a widespread adoption in all stages of education, of language teaching, then it's very difficult to be able to garner enough data to test, to analyze how DDL can actually work and how can it benefit language learning and language acquisition. But the truth is that DDL is not currently perceived as a major area of practice, as Pascual Pérez-Paredes said in 2022. It's not perceived as a major area of practice in correlated research. And that is actually a problem, because it's not garnering enough support either from teachers, secondary primary education or adult education, but also it's not getting enough support from academics as well, linguistics academics. So what can we do? We have recent literature has basically identified several issues regarding how DDL is constructed. It has been suggested that concordances might play a role in being too difficult to manage for the, let's say, quote unquote, average user. Very not user friendly, and quite difficult to access for someone that is outside the academic environment. There's also apparently too much focus on short-term, small-scale quantitative analysis constrained to tertiary education, because most of the support for DDL is set on university settings. Most of the studies, most of the quantitative data that has been analyzed regarding how the DDL functions has been set in tertiary education. People who study language, maybe, to start a career in language. So that might not be the best example of the benefits of DDL like at a large scale, because it just uses a very specific set of participants. There's also too little engagement with the theoretical underpinnings of DDL, because maybe it's much easier to gather a small group of people and test how a very specific DDL-based course is impacting their learning, than trying to, let's say, explore how DDL actually impacts the different theoretical advancements regarding second language acquisition or even applied linguistics. There have been recent advancements, there have been recent contributions that have tried to do justice to the theoretical possibilities that DDL can offer in Romery 2023. A very recent one, a very good one, linking DDL to usage-based learning. There's also the question of the availability of corpus-based materials, which are very hard to get, hard to use, and mostly based on English language. languages other than English need better representation, and which is actually one of the things that we're trying to do here today. So this leads me to what now? So there's a discussion needed, and there's a discussion being held right now in academia and in linguistics regarding what do we do with DDL. It might not work as intended as it is right now. So we need to do something to push it forward and to adapt to the new technologies that appear every day. And especially now, for instance, artificial intelligence, the landscape, the technological landscape might be very daunting and changing perhaps too fast for us to adapt correctly. But it also presents many opportunities for growth and for evolving the field to a much better status among the different fields of linguistics. So what do we do here? In the present seminar, which is basically a webinar, what we're trying to do is to provide a stage for current and future specialists in DDL to discuss how to tackle the challenges of an ever-evolving landscape. We need to discuss, we need to get in contact with each other, not just in conferences, but publicly this way, to present how we're all trying to contribute to the betterment, so to speak, of DDL as the important field that we all think it is, and to try to take DDL to the heights that we all believe that it can contribute to the overall notion of language learning and language acquisition. This will be our schedule for today. So I've given a small introduction. Then we will have, as you can see, as you have all received in your schedules, in your emails, all our panelists are all already here, which I guess we can start earlier, which is something very unusual for any of, if someone has ever organized this sort of thing. Starting earlier is very unusual at this stage. So there's no questions.
Actually, the chat is not active. You're right. We can see your question and answers. Can you hear me? Let me know if you can hear me just fine.
Yeah.
All right, I can answer you. So we can interact instead via chat. We can interact. Now it works.
It should work right now. I have just found why.
Can you please check?
Participants should be able to chat.
All right. Worst case scenario, there's the question and answers section which is available. We will reply there, so you can ask all your questions for the presentation. So even now, Carlos. Otherwise, I will just proceed now with a little bit with the introduction of our speakers.
The chat works.
The chat works. Great.
Yeah. Technology, right?
Yeah. All right. So first of all, thanks for all the speakers that decided to join us for this webinar. We are really glad to be able to listen to your research, because we are sure that it's going to contribute great to our own and in general, everybody is interested in this field and in this kind of research. So thank you very much. Thank you also to the experts that are with us today, who are Alex Boulton from the University of Lorraine, Pascual Pérez-Paredes from the University of Murcia, and Elisa Corino from the University of Torino. So thank you very much for joining us